I'm Naya, mom, boob nerd, board-certified lactation consultant, and lover of lipstick and curse words. I'm that weird Indian girl you knew in high school, all grown up.
And I'm Alexis, mom, birth nerd, and therapist plus doula, encouraging parents to hold joy plus what the fuck is this mess simultaneously. Some people think I'm too much, but those aren't my people. And we are the Top Knot Squad. TKS is a tiny little podcast about motherhood in real life, the good, the bad, the ugly AF.
Hosted by two women that are passionate about our beliefs and unafraid to speak our minds.
Friends that wanted to create space for all that ish we are too scared to talk about.
Are you ready to laugh, be vulnerable, and keep it real with us?
Top knots are not required.
If the Top Knot Squad content makes you laugh, nod in agreement, or makes you feel less alone, we'd love your support in the cost of producing this podcast. Visit patreon.com/TopKnotSquad to learn more about our budget-friendly sponsorship tiers and how you can help ensure that TKS has a future. Every little bit helps.
On this episode of the Top Knot Squad, we will be discussing the topic of teen parenting. According to the CDC, while teen pregnancy rates have been on the decline, the U.S. teen pregnancy rate is still substantially higher than in any other Western industrialized nations. We also know that access to evidence-based prevention programs and/or youth-friendly contraceptive and reproductive health services do not exist in all states, making this topic even more complex. Parenting is hard, but parenting teens brings on a new range of concerns for parents as they navigate the best way to help teens make healthy choices about relationships, sex, birth control, and beyond. We didn't want to tackle this topic alone, so today we are excited to have our friend, an official TKS photographer, Jessica Rockowitz, joining us. Jessica was herself a teen mom and is passionate about supporting teen parents and creating space to discuss this sensitive issue. Jessica is a mom of 3 kids, ages 14, 5, and 3. She is originally from Boston, but relocated with her family to the Austin area 3 years ago. She is a former GYN Nurse Educator, but left the profession in 2015 to pursue marketing and digital media. She purchased a DSLR to take better photos for her clients, fell deeply in love, and has now taken the leap into a full-time photography business. Jessica is passionate about writing, travel, supporting young parents, and drinking iced coffee.
Welcome.
Yay!
We're so glad to have you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Woo!
So let's jump in. Let's start by hearing a little bit about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny when people ask that because I realized on my drive here that I have been a mom for almost half my life. I did the math and it's only 2 years shy of half my life.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So when people say, tell me about yourself or your background, the first thing I think of is, oh, I'm a mom. Because it's like instinctive at this point, you know?
Yeah.
But I am a mom. I have 3 kids, just like you said. I had Haley when what would have been my senior year of high school. But I actually, when I found out I was pregnant, I graduated a semester early. I went to my school and told them my situation, and I finished my courses online while I was also taking courses at a local community college to get like some of the, foundational classes out of the way for when I transferred after. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I majored in biotechnology. I wanted to do research. I thought that was what I, was passionate about. And so after I graduated from college with her, I did attend a program through my college. They called it the Keys to Degrees program. Mm-hmm. And it was essentially for, young single parents being defined as unmarried. Mm-hmm. For ages 18 to 24 was the approximate range. You were able to live on campus with your child. Mm. They were able...
Wow.
I know.
That's really progressive. Yeah.
It is. Massachusetts.
Okay, well, yeah.
Yeah. So you could, live on campus with your child, and they were able to attend school anywhere in the area that you chose that were within the parameters of their financial budget, but their budget was very generous. Mm. So that was great. And Haley went to some great preschools, and I was very lucky with that. And then when she and I graduated, well, I say she and I, but it did feel like she graduated with me. I worked at Harvard University doing stem cell research. From there, I decided that I wanted to pursue a degree in healthcare. I didn't really know my next step, but I just knew that I felt really isolated doing research. It's kind of like you're with mice, essentially, in a lab. I didn't feel like I fit in there with the culture. It was a cool experience, though. But then I went on to do a BSN MSN second degree program at University of Pennsylvania. And that is, then I was in OB, nursing education was my background. And I worked at a low-income clinic in Philadelphia. And I served primarily teen parents and young parents. It was a clinic for patients who were on Medicaid. So about 90-something% of the patients were on Medicaid. So it was a very vulnerable population a lot of the times. Like a lot of the women lived in shelters. They had like really tough backgrounds at home with their partners. And it was pretty awesome to work with them. They were wonderful and they needed help. And so it was kind of a privilege, in my opinion, to be able to be the person to like be on their team. And I think I automatically made them feel comfortable a lot of the times because when they'd come into my office and they'd see a picture of Haley, they'd be like, "Is that your daughter?" And I'd say, "Yes." They'd be like, "You don't look old enough to have a daughter who's that old." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not, I still get that." And so I'd kind of tell them a little bit of my story and they'd automatically kind of relax. This is the longest intro ever. I'm sorry.
No, it's great.
That's because they felt seen.
They felt seen. Yeah. So, I mean, as much as I loved what I did, when Colin was almost 2, my second child, who's now 5.5, going to kindergarten in the fall, when he was almost 2, I just felt this calling to do something else. As much as I loved healthcare, I always felt like it was a step I took because I had to. I wanted to always be creative, but I never felt like I had permission to do that because I was a young mom. Felt like I needed to choose a profession that was very traditional in order to support myself, support Haley. So that's why I kind of chose the path that I did. But it was kind of like where we were in life, I had this permission given to me, by my husband. Like, at the time we were so young, he's like, I know you've always wanted to be creative. I know you want to do writing. I know you like marketing. Why don't you just do it? Why don't you just try? So I did. And I left in 2015. And I did freelance initially for a few years, which evolved into me starting a digital media company, which was pretty cool. I had some great clients. And, just like you said, I bought a camera totally on a whim just to take better photos of all the product I was sent for the collaborations. And it's totally what I was meant to do. And I fell so in love with it. And here I am kind of,
Here you are
from
being
there.
a boss.
Kind of terrifying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How old were you when you had Haley?
I had Haley when I was 17.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about that, like finding out and how you processed that. And did you have support and what did that support look like? And tell us a little bit more about that part of it.
It was really scary. So I was on birth control. So that's another thing is everyone always asks, were you on birth control? Yes, I was. What happened, I think, like looking back, I don't know, everyone's body's so different, right? I had switched kinds. So I'd switched from orthotricycline to orthotricycline low, lower dose of hormones, but that is the month that it happened. And I had a really weird period. It was like almost 3 weeks long. And I remember being so annoyed because I was just like, when you're 16, you're like, I don't want to have a period for 3 weeks.
I'm 37 and I feel that way.
Right?
So, yeah.
Exactly. So I was so annoyed. And then I remember after that, I never got another period because I got pregnant. And that was the month that I did. So who knows what was really happening with my body that month. But I was on birth control. It obviously wasn't part of my plan.
Did you know right away? Like, did you test right away?
No.
Or were you one of those that was like pretty far along before you were like, wait, maybe I'm pregnant?
I was in denial. Like I wasn't tracking my cycles. But then when I realized it was probably like, oh gosh, it was probably like 6 or 7 weeks along. And I realized like, hey, I haven't had
a period in a
Yeah,
while.
I had that weird. But then I thought, I had that weird 3 week long period. When I switched birth controls, my cycle must just be messed up. So I didn't think much of it. But then I started having some nausea and I still didn't have a period. So I told my sister. My sister is 14 years older than me. And she was like my rock during that time. And so I told her, hey, this is what's going on. I don't know what to do. And she's like, I need to take you to Planned Parenthood. And that's what we did. So she took me to Planned Parenthood and they made me test. And I remember sitting in the lobby and they called me back to the room, like this nurse with a clipboard. And I was like, I could just tell by the look on her face that she, I knew the answer before she gave it to me. She goes, well, you are pregnant. And I'm like, and it was really great because she asked me, well, she's like, what do you want to do? Do you have options? Like, what would you like to do about this? And I knew for me, abortion was something I thought of for like a split second, but it was never something that I felt was right for me. I'm very pro-choice, but it didn't feel right for me at that time. So I did tell her I wanted to continue the pregnancy because I was also thinking of adoption. So what they did was they gave me this list of doctors in my area, in my zip code, that they recommended. And that was like thank God they did that because I had no idea what to do. I had no idea who to call. No idea. So they gave me this list of doctors. I remember looking through it and calling like the first one on the list and going to see them. And that was where I got my prenatal care. And I was really lucky because I remember, you know, what's funny is I remember thinking like when I saw the nurse practitioner there, I loved her so much. The doctors were great too, but then I really bonded with the nurse practitioners. The doctors were male doctors. And it's funny because right now I don't think I'd ever choose a male OB, but at the time I really didn't care. But they were wonderful. But this nurse practitioner, I remember getting so upset when I found out she couldn't deliver my baby. I was like, what do you mean you won't be there delivering my baby?
Yeah.
She was wonderful. She used to like take me to the ultrasound room and be like, do you want to check on her today? Like, even though I didn't have an ultrasound schedule, she's like, let's do it. It'll be fun. Like, she was just really wonderful. And she was so non-judgmental. That was like the biggest thing. Now, looking back on all the providers I had, not once did she ever make me feel bad about it. And then when I had Haley too, well, you know, I had her on Christmas Day. So that means...
Oh, yes.
I know.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, she was due the 28th, so she came a few days early. And I had, for some reason, the hospital I was at had new nurses every 4 or 6 hours. I forget. There was like a shift change.
Not 12 hours.
Yeah, it's not 12 hours. I think it was because of the holiday, they said, which I've never heard of that, but that's what it was. And so some of them were really great, and then some of them were really terrible, which is life, you know. Eunice.
Were they really terrible because you were a teen mom?
It kind of felt like that. Like, I don't want to say that was why, but my first postpartum nurse was, oh my God, she was horrible. She was pregnant with her 4th. So in her defense, she probably just didn't feel super awesome because she was pretty visibly pregnant. But she just like rolled her eyes at me and made me feel terrible for like when I was crying about something because I was really scared about the catheter.
Oh yeah,
with my epidural.
Yeah.
And I was just like really upset and scared about it. And when she, like, you know, they had to remove it and it was traumatic. Then she had to do it again. It was like a whole ordeal. And I remember crying about it. My mom's like jabbering on the phone, holding Haley in a stocking. And this nurse is like looking at me, like giving me a glare and rolling her eyes. And I was just like, oh my gosh, where's my other one that left? Because I missed her. Yeah.
That's not okay. Ugh.
No. But I know every mom has, you know, experience with nurses. Nurses make or break your experience, right? Like some of them are so great, just like people.
But I can imagine just being a teen added an extra layer of that. You know, they were coming in with certain assumptions or judgments on top of the normal, like, new parent.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. No, my mom was super supportive, though. She was not at first. She was really upset at first, but I don't blame her. It's not, you know, she was a teen mom. And so she struggled a lot. And I think it came from a place of, I want better for you. She's like, you were always so smart and you have so much potential. And she just didn't want to see me waste it. And I know a lot of my family members kind of thought that that's what would happen. Like they told her, I found out that, oh, well, you're going to be raising this baby and, you know, now her life is over and you're going to have to deal with it. And she was the one that always said, no, she'll figure it out. She's smart. She'll do it. So that, you know, that always helped too. She was very supportive with me and helping me move into my school. But Haley went to school. Yeah, she went to daycare while I attended classes. And I took a traditional college schedule. So like 5 to 6 courses a semester.
Oh, okay.
And I tutored part-time as well for extra money because I needed gas money and money for life. So that was really, you know, it was good I did that. I worked at the writing center and then I tutored organic chemistry.
Oh my God, I could have used you. Organic chemistry was the bane of my college existence. And I still
loved it.
Really?
Yes.
I hated it. I failed it.
You either loved it or you hated it.
I hated it and I failed it. So that's probably part of why I hated it. I switched to my major not too long after that. But yeah.
Oh, I loved it.
The only thing I failed at, and well, not the only thing, but you know, like academic wise, that's the only thing that I failed. And it still haunts me.
You're not the first person to say that. Like a lot of people struggled with that class.
It's a tough class. Yeah.
I failed physics.
Oh, physics. I never liked physics.
I did better in that. I mean, not spectacular, but better. I didn't fail it. So. My parents were happy about that one. But. So I know that you've talked a lot about your mom and your older sister as your supports. Did you have any other supports that kind of helped you through this whole process?
They were my main ones, for sure. And my school was really supportive too. I mean, once I was in school, the program was set up really uniquely. We had a advisor that kind of helped us almost check in weekly with our schedules and just making sure we were staying on task with like homework and tests and everything like that. And actually, we used to joke about it, the girls and I, because we didn't love that at first, because a lot of us were a little upset that they assumed like, oh, because we have a child, we're not going to be able to keep up or stay on task. But, it was nice to have, because most people who did have that, they had to pay for it per semester, but we got it for free. It was like an academic, perk. And then we had like monthly meetings with the director of the program who like supported us with different topics and like parenting topics. And then we also just, we had each other like that. Raising your kid at that age, like it's so hard. When you become a mom, sometimes you lose friends if you have friends that are not in that stage of life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like that times 500 when you're a teen, because there are no other teens who are, at that stage of life with you. So I remember on New Year's Eve when Haley was just a few days old, my friends looked so cute and they were like all dolled up and like came to visit us and say hi before they went out. And I remember just like sobbing when they left, because I just felt like, oh my God, my life is over. I'm here with this baby. Everyone looks cute. And you know how you do not feel cute postpartum? That is not exclusive to when you're not older, but Well,
I'd imagine it's intensified as a teen.
Yes.
So much pressure about body image at that age.
Totally.
Yeah.
It was terrible. So I think like once I moved into school and like had the support of other moms my age who were fun, like we went out together. I had a great social life. I have to say, I had the best babysitters ever that came over when Haley was sleeping. They were all education majors at my school. And I went out a lot. And that was really fun. And then once Kyle graduated from college, he took Haley a lot of weekends. So that was really helpful for me too.
That was something I was going to ask, and you might be able to speak to it when you were later on working with teen moms in Philadelphia. Is that where it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it sounds like where you were in Boston, there were great resources for you. But unfortunately, I think there's many parts of our country that those resources don't exist. And so the experience of teen moms can look so different when those supports aren't in place. Did some of your patients, did you see that unfold, or were they also in an area that had those types of supports? And like, how would you connect them when the resources were limited?
So it's interesting because my job specifically dealt with the clinical side. So our clinic did have a social worker. So I would refer my patients if they were in need of helping them obtain assistance in housing. I would refer them to her because I didn't have that knowledge. She was so wonderful. Actually, now I miss her. But her office was across the hall from mine, and she's fantastic. But she was the person that I'd go to, knocking on the door like in tears, being like, what do I do for this lady? This is her story. Some of them had really heartbreaking stories. But for me, like the side I saw of it that was tough was the Medicaid side. As I'm sure you know, you have to jump through a lot of hoops sometimes to obtain Medicaid.
Yes.
Massachusetts was really good about it, to be honest. I know that in other parts of the country, it's pretty terrible from what I've heard from other people I've met and worked with. Philadelphia, it seemed pretty good with them too, but a lot of them, I mean, they had requirements. I remember where they had to show that they were looking for employment, regardless of their circumstances. So they would kick them off of assistance or their health care if they weren't showing up to the specific location that many of them didn't have transportation to sit at a computer and job search for X amount of hours a week or month or whatever it was.
Wow.
The details are fuzzy because it was, years ago. But I remember them complaining about that. And then, of course, there's two sides to every story because the director of our clinic was like, well, but, we need them to be actively looking so that they can help their future and their baby's future. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much every system is awful to navigate, and there's hoops involved. We actually, with PPHA, we recently had WIC come and give a talk on kind of like what their services are and how people can access them. And that was one of the questions that came up is like I've had feedback from clients that it was just too hard to apply for these services. And I think that that's really true of so many systems. Like systems are just so difficult to navigate that it's like, you know, why am I going to do this? And then on top of that, you're navigating like you have a baby or you're pregnant or whatever. You're navigating all these layers. And it's disheartening. And we need to fix the system.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, but it is hard. It was really hard to watch, you know, the circumstances that they had. And then it made me also realize how much support I did have at that time, just because, you know, things that you don't always realize you are lucky to have, like a supportive parent at home who provides you with 3 meals a day and transportation to your school, like things like that you really take for granted sometimes because you don't realize how lucky you are. You know, these were women who, some of them were in abusive situations, some of them were young 20s with their 4th or 5th child, or teens with multiple children. Because there is this, I'm sure you guys know, like statistically, you are more likely to have another child within, I forget exactly the certain amount of years from your first as a teen parent. And I did see that in practice. And I did see that too with my program. There were a couple girls that left because they had subsequent pregnancies. Because that was one of, we had certain house rules we had to maintain while we were there on campus. Our apartments were inside of a dorm. It was a 200-person dorm, and our apartments were at the end of the dorm. So the dorm is a horseshoe shape. And so our apartments were 4-bedroom apartments, 2 moms, two kids per apartment. And there were 6 of them. So they were at the end, whereas the rest of the dorm was just traditional students, which could be great and slightly awful.
Right.
Because I'm sure, like, sharing laundry with all of them, by the way. Nightmare.
Awful. Oh, yeah.
Like, do you guys remember in college did people ever take your stuff out of the dryer if it had been and stick it? Okay, well, imagine that with like unicorn underwear, size 3T. And like, you know what I mean? It was
One Z's.
Yes. It was ridiculous. And I remember like setting alarms and rushing with Haley like under my arm, like football, like, no, we have to go. They're going to take my laundry out. I really wish they would have put laundry in there, but you know, it's fine.
Well, I wanted to see I wanted to hear more about like, how has this impacted you're parenting a teen now, you know? So like, how is this your whole story and journey?
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
So as supportive as my mom is Mormon, LDS. They don't believe in premarital sex. So as you can imagine, that was a whole new layer of this for me. I remember approaching her once when I was, you know, before I was pregnant. This was like a year or 2 before I got pregnant, when I first started having sex, and just asking her about birth control. And her response was no, you're not supposed to have sex. That's not okay. And so that stuck with me. The whole, I really understand that some people believe that. That's not how I raised my daughter, and that's not how I raised my boys. It's not like I'm like, oh, please go explore and have fun and not care about any consequences. Like, no. But I do teach her, instead of you need a marriage, I teach her you need to be with a partner that respects you and loves you and that you feel comfortable with and that doesn't pressure you. So it changes the way that I parent her in terms of how she perceives sex, because I was kind of raised with like, sex is bad. Don't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's shaming.
Yeah, shaming. Whereas actually, you know what's interesting? She asked me, God, I hope she doesn't listen to this. She asked me yesterday on our way to school about masturbation. That's how open we are. Like we're not like going around. I mean, I'm an open book with her, but she was talking about, I don't know how we got on that topic, but she was talking about like male masturbation versus female. And she was like, she's like, do girls do that? Is that, you know, and at my age, it's not really considered, like, people don't do that. I'm like, well, maybe they don't talk about it. I'm like, but you know, what's great about being older is you don't care anymore and you kind of are open about things. But she asked me questions and it was a very good conversation. And so I never had conversations like that with my mom. Now I would. She's changed a lot and she would, you know, go there. But now I'm like, please, no, don't go there. So I'm glad Haley wants to ask me, because I'm happy to talk with her, but it definitely changes my perception on that. It also changes my perception on teaching her about birth control. Because, you know, I told her if she's ever thinks about having sex, I want her to be protected. And she knows how important it is. And I want her to know that I'm there to like help her navigate that and like take her to the doctor and figure out what form of contraception is going to be best for her. But like I do want her on something and told her how important that is. I think the cool thing is that she's watched me raise her brothers. And so in a way, they're kind of like their own form of birth control because she sees like how tough that it can be with little kids. And she's like, God, they're so annoying sometimes. I'm like, I know. Imagine if that was your child, not just your brother. And she's like, no, thank you.
Yeah. When they're your brother, you can go hide from them, but not when you're their mom.
Oh, I know. And she takes all these BuzzFeed quizzes and they all say she's going to have cats or dogs. She's like, none of them say I'm going to have kids. So
that's so funny.
No, she is. Funny. But I definitely want to be very open with her. It's like important to me, like, that she knows it's not a shameful thing and I'm not going to judge her. I'm not going to be upset, that I just want to make sure she's safe and loved. Like those are the two biggest things because I never felt that. So I feel like it's important for me to instill that in her. And I mean, she's going to high school in the fall, which is terrifying. So I know it's coming up. You know, I know that it's going to be something she navigates in the next few years. And, you know, could be next year, it could be years from now, but I think it's going to be sometime in that window where it comes up. And I just want her to, you know, feel confident in herself and make good decisions because I feel like I lacked that confidence too.
I love that.
Thanks.
I'll follow your advice.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Well, I love that about our friendship is I get to hear about what's to come.
It's nice to have a friend that's ahead of you, like one step ahead of you, at least with certain things.
Yes.
So you can be like, hey, how did you navigate this? Or how did you handle that?
Yeah.
So kind of on that note, it seems like you and Haley have a really great and open relationship. How else do you find ways to connect with her? I've read stories and, you know, seen articles about parents of teenagers or even preteens checking their social media and taking phones away at night. And as someone who will be parenting a tween in the next couple of years, I'm starting to kind of dip my toe very cautiously in that world. And so I'm dying to know, how do you handle all of that?
Okay, so social media, it might be an unpopular opinion. She's had Instagram since like it came out on her iPod Touch when Instagram was literally like basically a camera roll, right? Remember those days? So I think a lot of it depends on the child because now that I have 3 kids who are all very different, she is a good, very trustworthy kid. Now ask me in 10 years about Colin because it won't be that way. But I do let her have, we try to restrict it to about an hour a day of social media use, which sounds like a lot, but it actually adds up pretty fast. And we do random check-ins. So I know there are some parents that literally like read their kids' text messages and things every night. I don't. I do random check-ins like throughout the month or year when I just feel it's warranted or just want to check in if I feel like, hey, you know, she's really used her phone a lot lately. I just need to see what's going on. I've never found anything bad. I've also trained her really well to like what to look for. I guess maybe trained isn't the right word, but taught her, you know, what to look for in like unsafe situations on the internet. We've talked about sex trafficking and like how if you ever get a DM or a friend request from someone, like she's very picky about who she accepts and always shows me if there's a DM that comes in that seems sketchy, which does not happen often at all. And if it does, it's not that sketchy. But there are situations I've heard from other people where they've had worse outcomes. So, you know, she knows that it's important to keep me in the loop with that.
Does she know you do random check-ins?
Yes.
Okay.
She does. So she knows that at any given point I can be like, I need your phone and I will check it. We don't let her keep her phone in her room at night. So we do kind of a check-in, check-out system where it just has to be charging downstairs and she can get it after she gets ready for school and comes down in the morning. She can have it on the bus, obviously, and then she gets it at school. Actually, here's another thought too. Lake Travis is our district. I don't like the way they handle cell phones. They allow those kids to have their phones and actually make it mandatory for some of the classes to like use your phone as a calculator or use the internet on your phone. I hate that. Like our school in Pennsylvania was the opposite, where they did not let the kids have their phones in class. They did not encourage them to use it as a calculator or a browsing device. So that's something because she'll say, well, my school lets me do X, Y, Z. I'm like, I don't care. I think that's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't want them to use their phones as much as they do. It drives me insane.
Because how can they regulate what exactly they're doing?
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're still not at that point where they can say, okay, well, I think this is enough. Yeah,
because I remember when I have grounded her before, which doesn't happen often. She's pretty good, but it does happen sometimes. I've taken away her phone, and she came to me and was like so upset because she's like, the teacher's going to be really mad at me because we use our phone to do this, this, and this, and I'm going to get marked off. I'm like, well, then you tell your teacher to call me, because I'm not going to let her mark you off for not having your cell phone when you don't have the privilege of it right now. Sorry. Like, hopefully that teacher has a calculator or an alternative for you to do whatever it is you need to do. But yeah, it's definitely tough because I try to balance that need to like supervise her, but also to let her go. Because I try to put myself in her shoes too. And if my mom, so my mom actually, this did happen. Remember we had journals?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So my mom found and read my journals before, and it mortified me, and I was really upset.
It's a huge breach of trust.
It is. So I know like a lot of parents check their kids' phones nightly, and they really comb through. And I mean, I get it. I don't, because I trust her. I guess that's all it boils down to. I really, until she gives me a reason not to trust her, I unconditionally do really trust her. And she's earned that in 14 years. When she has had issues, she has come to me. Again, my 5-year-old, I don't see him being like that. So maybe I'll check his more, or maybe just never give him one ever, because I'm terrified to give him anything like that. But she is really good. The things that are really tough is, have you guys heard of TikTok?
No.
Formerly Musical.ly. Have you heard of Musical.ly?
No.
That I have.
So TikTok is Musical.ly. They changed the name.
I've heard of neither. What is this?
I'm vaguely aware of what Musical.ly was, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm probably not as knowledgeable as the kids, right? I sound old saying that. But essentially what it used to be is like this cute little platform for people to lip sync and dance to like songs. But it became just like totally a bit out of control, so she's in 8th grade, and all the TikToks which are the videos of the kids in 8th grade, are showing them now that like vaping is the thing, right? So there's a bunch of her friends on there who are not her direct friends, but acquaintances from school who are like vaping in their TikTok videos and like doing sexy poses. And it's a lot happening that I'm like, oh my God, we have reached this part of parenting where it's like, we used to probably do similar stuff, but not really. But
there was no social media trail.
There was no social media trail. Yes, exactly. And so these kids are like literally just vaping on camera for the world to see. Sometimes at school, like in school bathrooms, and like snapping it to each other, or like putting it on their TikTok. And she sees that. And so a lot of parents I understand would be like, oh my God, I don't want my kid to see that. I'm gonna ban them from TikTok. Whereas for me, I'm like, she's gonna see it anyway. She knows what it is. She doesn't do it. How about she makes good decisions? It will help her in her decision-making skills, and I will be there to help with it. And she shows them to me. So,
Well, clearly, I was going to say that. Like, clearly, this trust that you've built, it's reflective in your relationship just from everything that you've shared.
Yes.
And it's created this open relationship where she feels safe coming to you. And so you know more that way. Like, you're able to connect with her more because of that.
She doesn't have to hide things.
No,
that's
awesome.
true.
Yeah.
I'm sure like everyone hides some things, but no, she doesn't. She actually said to me the other day too, she goes, I think, I might try alcohol next year. And I was like,
hilarious.
Oh, really?
Okay.
And she's like, how old were you guys when you drank? Like that, those are the questions that get a little, and I remember in like 5th or 6th grade when she learned about wet dreams, she like asked Kyle at dinner once, she goes, Dad, did you ever have wet dreams? And it's just,
my husband would die.
He was a little bit there. Yeah. I've had talks with him where like you have to just roll with it. And I mean, we're both thankful she's like comfortable enough to ask, but yeah that was a little intense.
Yeah.
So I definitely tried to make it like an open space, but I did tell her, my number one thing with drinking too for next year, in high school, it's going to happen at parties, is do not get in the car with anyone who's been drinking. I'm like, I won't care what time it is or where you are. You need to, if you call me to come pick you up, I will not be upset with you. You will not be in trouble. I just don't want you getting in the car with someone who's been drinking. Like that is like my number one. I will be very upset with her if she does that. So I'm hoping, because she even mentions that sometimes. I heard her tell her friend once. She's like, yeah, my mom said that if we're at a party and we were stranded and got broken up and everyone's been drinking, that she'll just come pick us up. And I will. I really will.
Yeah.
And I had friends in high school, maybe you guys did too, that same thing. Their parents had that same rule with them, and they did call sometimes, and it was nice that we had that option.
No, I had the parent that bought alcohol. This is my mother, so if my other parents are listening, I'm not talking about you. Y'all were responsible. I'm talking about my birth mother.
My parents don't listen to this podcast, so I feel totally fine saying this. And I was that child that would sneak alcohol from their parents' cabinet and bring it to the
all my
party.
friends
So that
were.
was me. Yeah.
I would have too, but we didn't have a liquor cabinet because my mom was Mormon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, I would have been there with you. And most of my friends, we did. Like, we took from theirs. Like, oh my gosh, my friend Lauren, if you're listening to this, shout out to Sky Vodka that we spilled all over my rug and Steph when we took it out. I was definitely sneaking around.
So you have a great relationship with Haley now. Can you think back to anything that you did to kind of keep it as open when she was younger? Did you talk about hard things with her? Any advice for, someone with kids, maybe the ages of mine and Alexis's? They're younger. Obviously,
give us the formula.
Yeah. We're not having those hard conversations yet, but we don't want to do anything to prevent those hard conversations from happening.
Yes. I do have a few key pieces of advice, actually. So one, we did talk about sex really early. I think kindergarten, actually. And I started with this book called It's Not the Stork. You can get it on Amazon.
I've heard really good things about that book.
Oh, it's so good. It's a 3-part series. The first part, I think, is for ages 4 and up. And the second one is...
I need this.
Oh, it's so wonderful.
Shit, Rory's already 6. I'm already behind.
I know, we got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Well, my biggest thing... So the reason I did that is my biggest thing was because I always told myself she's going to learn it from someone, and it's either going to be like on the playground or it's going to be from me. And actually, that did come to fruition because when she was going into first grade, she went to the summer camp. And I remember I was a lifeguard there. And so she went. It was a super nice summer camp. And there was this one little boy who was like 2 years older than her. She was going to first. He was probably going to third. And he mentioned, like, he was the one mentioning sexual things to the kids, like not in a bad way, just in a, oh, did you know that this is what it is and this is how it happens? And she came to me and told me, and then she goes, and guess what, Mom? I told him I already knew all of that. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like empowering to them, I think.
Yes.
To kind of give them that knowledge, but in an age appropriate way. And I haven't done it with Colin yet. He's 5. Because I'm a little scared that he's going to be that kid that like runs to school and tells his whole class, whereas Haley wasn't. But now actually she did confide in me the other day. She's like, yeah, I told everyone, like my friends, like about our books that we read. I'm like, great. But it was fine. But I do recommend that series. And then my biggest thing is, instead of like when they come to you and talk to you and you ask them about their day, instead of saying like giving them specific advice, to put it back in their court and be like, what do you think of that? Why do you think that happened? What can you do next time to change it? And I think those like questions when she's come to me and asked me things, or when she's just telling me about her day and what happened, have been really powerful in terms of her building trust and like that I, know she knows what she's doing, but I'm here to support her.
Yeah, it's empowering.
Yeah. So just things like that, if she's really upset about something, asking her, what happened? What do you think we could do differently? How does that make you feel? And just opening it up more so than just like, this is what you should do, which is like my first instinct because I like to fix things,
right?
But I think it's nice to keep that conversation open that way.
I love that. You're a therapist. You didn't even know it.
There you go. Life skills.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not the stork. Okay, buying that.
I know.
I feel like this is a good segue into the AISD debacle.
Yes.
I know you guys have to tell me more about that.
Yeah. So, you have kids in the district.
I have kids in AISD.
So you know more about it than I do.
Yeah, I know more about it, but I don't know a lot about it, only because I agree with what they're doing. So I'm like, I don't want to pull my kid out of it. So basically AISD, which is short for Austin Independent School District, I believe. They are working on a curriculum to talk about sex and human bodies and gender and things like that at younger ages. And so the curriculum includes lessons on healthy relationships, personal safety, identity, like gender fluid, transsexual people or transgender people, all of that. And that's the part that's causing the most stir. They're going to talk about anatomy and physiology, puberty and adolescent development, and then beginning in 5th grade, they add an info on pregnancy, reproduction, and STDs and HIV. So, of course, you're not going to give a 5th grader the same information that you would give somebody in 2nd. And the stir around it and kind of the controversy around it is people are like, well, I don't want my child being taught all of this. Part of it comes from, I believe part of the agenda was written by, I think, the Human Rights Coalition, HRC. But because they tend to have kind of a more liberal view on things like gender fluidity and sex and so on and so forth, people who may be more conservative minded or want to have that talk with their kids in a particular way are really upset about this. And so there were meetings where people were going up and protesting and holding signs. And these are school board meetings. They're not council meetings or anything, but they're AISD school board meetings. Like I said, I am okay with it. I learned about sex in 4th grade when our health teacher accidentally put in the 5th grade video. And so we learned a lot more, the video, not even an actual talk, but a video. And we accidentally saw it. He put in the 5th grade video when we were supposed to have something obviously less detailed, I guess. But one thing that maybe because it is because I'm a lactation consultant and because I sort of am a birth nerd and love learning about human bodies and biology and all of that. I think in order to sort of break that stigma of breastfeeding and what breasts are used for, we need to teach kids at a younger age that the primary role and function of breasts is to create milk and to nurture and to give life. That's the 1,000-foot view. We're not going to get into all of the well, what if the person who's trying to lactate can't for whatever reason? Like, they don't need to know what I know as a lactation consultant. They just need to know that this is what breasts are for. And
that is not just for sex. Like,
exactly.
It's not sexual.
It's not just a sexual thing. Yeah. This is what society has made it into and only a sexual thing. But they have an actual function and they do a lot of things. So maybe I'm coming at it from that perspective, but it doesn't bother me that my children will be learning about this.
No, it's necessary.
It is absolutely necessary.
So I actually read the curriculum. That's how I got these notes. And what I took from it is they have it broke. You can find it online. So you go to austinisd.org or whatever the website is, and you can find they have it very specifically broken down. And so they have it from 3rd grade and then 4th grade, and it looks a little bit different. So it's age appropriate. Really, the younger age curriculums, when it comes to all of this, especially with the identity portion, it was more about like how to treat people with respect. Like, that's what's in the curriculum, like how to be inclusive and know that there are lots of different identities and relationships and orientations and people, and that no matter what you might believe, for all the crazy people that are opposed to this thing, yes, I think you're crazy, is that, no, we just need to be respectful and inclusive and like compassionate fucking human beings. And that's what I took from the curriculum.
That's what gets me about all of the opposition. This is about being inclusive and making sure that people feel safe and respected.
Yes,
and exactly. Who would not want that for their child or for another human?
Right.
And so it's mind-boggling to me. But at the really, really basic levels, like kindergarten and 1st grade, a lot of this doesn't actually start until 3rd grade. But part of that is using correct terms for genitalia. So we talk about vulvas and we don't call them vaginas, and we call them breasts and not boobs, and all the penises. And I still remember, so with my oldest, we taught him the proper terms for his anatomy.
We did too.
And it was a big thing for me. And my grandmother lived with us at the time, and she was so mad that my 2-year-old was saying the word penis. And she's like, well, no, that's not what we call it. I'm like, yeah, and she called it a nunu.
Oh,
and
man.
So she's like, I'm like, but what is going to happen if he's at school and he says my nunu hurts? Nobody knows what the hell that means. I mean, let's just call it what it is. There's no point in masking it. And then there have been studies that have shown that if you do that with children who are young, it helps reduce their risk of being sexually abused or going through anything
I did learn that in school.
Yeah. And so, if your child calls her vulva a vulva and she comes home calling it a muffin, something's up,
Yes.
And so there's a lot of really good reasons to learn these terms and kind of for the betterment. But like you said, Alexis, at the end of the day, it just comes down to understanding that there's more than just these two genders out there and identity and everything that falls underneath that.
Yeah. And just So our audience can know if you're like majorly opposed to this very wonderful,
Inclusive.
inclusive curriculum, you're right as a parent if you're in this district is you can tell them that you don't want your child to have that lesson. So they'll like pull them out of that class
absolutely.
or whatever. So
You can opt out.
you have that option.
And you can teach them in whatever way that you would like
You
to
can teach them about
storks.
it is the stork.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got real feisty there. I'm a little salty.
So did I.
about this, but
For someone who doesn't
Anyways.
know a lot about it.
that's clearly your parenting philosophy does not match this drama in our school district here in Austin,
Yeah.
based off what you said.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know what Lake Travis does too. I mean, we're different where we are, but I do know, I remember someone telling me that in Lake Travis High School, they have like 2 options for sex ed, and one is through Planned Parenthood and another one is through like a pro-life kind of.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't really know the logistics though. I just remember someone that worked at the high school told me that, and that you have to like sign a permission slip to opt your child out of, the Planned Parenthood one. So.
Yeah. Wow.
I know. And Haley had some experience with sex ed in middle school too. I don't think it was the most positive.
What was it?
I just think it was just very abstinence heavy in the sense. But I think a lot of times too, like the teacher touched upon like teen parenting, but not in a, in a pretty negative way, which, I understand it's pretty normal because no one wants their child to become a parent as a teen. And, teens for so many reasons are not the most equipped to be parents, right? Like we are barely as like married, older, educated adults equipped to be parents. So, teens have all these sets of obstacles, ahead of them that we don't have. Like they haven't had their education yet. Maybe they don't have a place to live outside of their parents' home. Like how are they going to support the child and themselves? It's like a whole, can of worms there. However, I do think that the biggest thing to help any, parenting teens is support. And so like speaking about teen pregnancy in a negative way is not really helpful. It's not helping anyone who might be in that situation or, either then or sometime in the future. It's also just not teaching, like you said, anyone to be a kind person and be inclusive and to like look at a fellow human as like, okay, what can I do to help support them, not shame them?
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Amen. Well, we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
What important thing do you really want our audience to know about teen parenting and pregnancy that you want to leave them with?
Biggest thing, like I said too, just being supportive. So if you know someone in your life who is a pregnant teenager or parenting teenager, ask what you can do to help support them and connect them with resources. What are they lacking? Like, where are they living? Do they have a stable living situation? How are they putting food on the table? Do they need assistance for that? What are their plans for education? I mean, not necessarily college, but just what are their plans for how they're going to support themselves and what they're passionate about, in order to work for them and their child, like whether that's having their own business or a trade school or college, whatever that looks like for them. But just having them know their options, I think is the biggest thing, because that for me, like that was terrifying. You don't really know a lot of your options. And now we have the internet, like we had it back then, but it wasn't what it is today.
Right.
So I think that there are so many resources at their fingertips. Unfortunately, the program that I was in did close this year. I know.
That's really sad.
It's so sad. I don't know if there's any others though.
You just made me think about how, because on the previous episode, we were talking about kind of transitions and it's like the transition to motherhood. And as you were just talking, I was just realizing like support too of, I feel like teen parents oftentimes kind of get this message of, especially in the postpartum period, like, well, you did this to yourself. You asked for this.
They do.
And how like there's no grace given of like whether they're a teen and they made this mistake or not, like they're still navigating all the things that all the rest of us navigate in postpartum.
100%.
So
Yes, very much so.
And like they just because they had a baby as a teen means that they don't get to transition through their parenthood the same as the rest of us.
For sure.
Yeah, that just popped in my head.
No, that's so true. And actually, I have people who have said that experience that I've worked with. I feel like I got it a little bit, from as much as my family was supportive. They really were. I think there was that little bit that was like, well, yeah, this is hard. This is what you signed up for. Mm-hmm. It's like, and I think even people saying that to parents who are married or not married, but older, educated, whatever people think is the right way to have a child, it's hurtful. Mm-hmm. It's because being a parent is hard. It's so hard. Mm-hmm. So many emotions and hormones, and especially doing it young too. Mm-hmm. You're right. That's definitely a thing that it's not a helpful thing to say. And you're right. It's like you kind of are thrown into this like, yep, this is what you asked for. It's almost like they're not allowed to mourn that transition. And
right. Or the loss of being a teenager and not really having to worry about a small baby.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And no matter what, like they're still a parent. They're still navigating all the same things that a parent does. Take teen away from it, like, I don't know.
Yep.
So, well, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
This was awesome.
Yeah.
You guys are great.
If the Top Knot Squad's content makes you laugh, nod in agreement, or makes you feel less alone, we'd love your support in the cost of producing this podcast. Visit patreon.com/TopKnotSquad to learn more about our budget-friendly sponsorship tiers and how you can help ensure that TKS has a future. Every little bit helps.
If you like what you hear, then be sure to click the subscribe button in your podcast app. While you're there, leave us a review. You can find us on social media. Just search for Top Knot Squad. We welcome your feedback and love making new friends.